We are at the kitchen of the Hilton Amsterdam, and the task of today is pizza. Finally, I thought I knew how to make pizza, but finally I'm gonna see how to make it from a real Napolitan pizza chef who's gonna show me all the little tricks. Different regions of Italy have different paradigms about what the perfect pizza is. Of course, the Napolitans are very, very clear on that the real original pizza is the Napolitan pizza. But of course, if you go to Rome or even to Liguria and eat the focaccia, they have a completely different notion of what the perfect pizza or flatbread is. So what is the perfect pizza? Well, it depends on your paradigm, depends what you think is perfection itself. The Napolitans are very particular because they have a very thick edge called the cornicione, where you can really taste the quality of the dough, and it's usually very fragrant, very aromatic, and then you also can see the little bubbles that show you if the dough has been rising for a long time or has been fermented very fast. That makes a pizza indigestible, basically. So, and then the center of the pizza, of the Napolitan pizza, would be very, very thin, so you can really taste what you put inside. So eating a Napolitan pizza is an art in itself. You must fold it so the center doesn't fall apart. And actually, when you grab a slice of Napolitan pizza, you will see it later, the center actually falls, and it's called the cadenza della pizza. And that is a sign that the dough is perfectly soft. But I was saying, eating the pizza napolitana in itself is an art. You must fold it, eat it folded in the center so it doesn't fall off, and then take a bit of the cornicione, so you have the center and the cornicione. So it's not as simple as it seems. We're gonna do the pizza dough, which is a starting part of the process of what you will see today. So we have with us Dario Guerrasio, coming straight from Naples, and it's a very peculiar thing because he has rough quantities of how much flour and water he's going to use, but you're gonna see he tastes and tries to see if he needs to add more flour according to the temperature of the atmosphere and according to how humid it is. Because Dario is gonna leave tomorrow morning back to Naples, he left us with some guidelines, and what he wrote is that for 1 liter of water, we need roughly 1.65 kilos of flour. And he uses 45 grams of salt and 1.5 grams of yeast, of lievito di birra, which is beer's yeast, or brewer's yeast is called in English. So this is a starting point, but you're gonna see how he tastes and adds a few grams more or less of flour. We must be very careful with the way we handle the yeast, because if he touches the salt, it sort of kills the active process, and then it doesn't rise as it should. So that's why he keeps it there in a little throne of paper separated from the salt. We're gonna make 3 liters of water, that's a starting point, and that's more or less enough for 30 pizzas. So a starting point is water and the yeast that comes dissolved inside the water. What is the ideal temperature to make the water, to make the dough?
Possiamo essere tra I 4 e 10 gradi centigradi.
So it must be between 4 and 10, so as you can see, it's actually cold water.
Non deve essere mai calda.
Yeah, it can never be hot. It's almost 5 kilos, it's 4.8. 1 kilo, 650 grams times 3, and it must be added gradually. Yeah, and the first 7 minutes, it's very important that the speed is slow. The elasticity of the dough is very different if you make it by hand or if you make it by machine. But of course, now with the quantities that you make, you have to do with the machine. But still at home, he makes it by hand. The proportions are the same. You can do 1/4 liter of water if you want. And he has it gradually because that way it takes the moisture gradually. The flour is very important. Actually, what they like to use, it's 0,0, which is the size of the grain when it's milled. But also, he likes a high protein content in the flour. So sometimes what they do, if they don't find the flour they like, they make a mixture of the different flours according to to the gluten percentage or the protein percentage. The gluten is the protein in wheat flour. They say that every pizzaiolo has his own different mix of flour according to the way they like to work or how long they like to raise it. And they have different flours in the market. There's the Manitoba, which is an original a Canadian grain, a Canadian wheat that is very, very high in protein. So they might add a little bit of the Manitoba. Some pizzaiolos like to have a little bit of crispiness in the dough, so they add the semolina, the semola macinata. But they must be very careful, because if you add too much, then you make a hard dough, and it's not pleasant anymore. So you can see he feels the humidity of the dough, and then he controls adding or taking away. According to the temperatures, the three temperatures we're talking about are the flour temperature, the water temperature, and the room temperature. And according to these temperatures, the dough that gets formed is different. So he needs to adjust to compensate this. Once that he sees that the gluten network or net has been created, then he goes a little bit faster. Yes, they call it, it's very poetic. They say, we are forming the pumpkin, which is when everything takes shape of a pumpkin. And that means that, yeah, that's the right consistency. And of course you call zucca because it's a ball, but with the different portions or wedges of like a pumpkin would have. The more that they will do the dough is 14 to 16 minutes, but now he will add the salt, which is actually the closing stage, the closing step. By adding the salt, he closes the gluten net, as he calls it. And you can see that, I mean, this is totally different to what I would do, or like I used to do when I was making pizza. I would add the salt from the very beginning, you know, to make it more evenly distributed. But I suppose it has a difference with the yeast, because the salt has an impact on how the yeast ferments. But I'm guessing now, technically speaking. He needs to check the temperature all the time, that it doesn't overheat. 21 to 25 degrees, no more than that. He's just gonna add a drop of oil to make the dough nice and shiny and easier to work. It's always extra virgin olive oil. Yeah, very important. They should be well mixed. There shouldn't be any residues of water or salt or flour in the bowl. It must be very, very well mixed and homogeneous. They also can hear when the dough is ready, that they are doing like a puff, puff, puff. And it's the sound that the air bubbles, the dough is making, and it lets you know that it's ready. So you see, there's a lot of poetry involved. 1 minute more, and that will be it. Yeah, that is not sticky, because they use what they call a low hydration of the dough, which is between 65 and 60, between 60 and 65 humidity, hydration in the dough. So of course, because it's not so wet, it doesn't stick to your hands. If you look closely, the fermentation has started. The yeast has started to make his job. Because you can see the bubbles, you can see the alveolatura. Yeah, so we're going to make it compact again. And that is semolina flour, that's the semola rimacinata. And you can see he's folding it in a certain way. Now we leave it to rest half an hour. And then we're going to do the panetti, which is already the portions of the pizza that we're going to make. He covers it with the oil so it doesn't create a crust. And he's putting a wet cloth on top so it stays in a humid environment. And he's gonna leave it there at room temperature for 25 to 28 degrees. That's room temperature in Naples. So to rise a little bit and to let the fermentation advance before forming the panetti, which are the portions of the pizza already, which are traditionally 270 grams. First thing we will do is a margarita, and this has to be Pomodoro San Marzano, which is a tomato that grows in the skirts of the Vesuvius volcano, famously on volcanic soil. What the volcanic soil does, because it's a very poor soil, is that the tomato plant needs to develop very deep roots, and that makes legendary a very flavorful tomato. So the salsa de la pizza is raw San Marzano. He puts first the basilico, and then at the end he will also put fresh basilico. And this is fior di latte, which is really the same impasto of the mozzarella, but then dried so it hasn't got too much moisture. And then, as you can see, he shapes the pizza perfectly. When you bake in wood fire oven, the baking time is slightly different. And he was telling me that he needs to use a certain type of stone that is very porous, so it also takes the humidity out of the pizza. And then this is a traditional move, which is the half turn of the pizza. Il mezzo giro. They do it because they are looking what is the source of heat and where is the hottest spot in the oven. So they're turning the pizza to look for that. And if you can see what he's doing now is he has the underside of the pizza ready, so he puts the spatula and then he finishes on top, but with the spatula under so he doesn't overcook the... So it's really like a hand finishing the pizza. E vediamo sotto, come si dice, la pelle di leopardo, la... So that's the mark of the leopard is called, that it has to be like spots like in a leopard. I mean, it was fast, but the other thing that he does is this is semola macinata. And then he has one hard side, which is the drier one, where he put the dough on top, and then he turns it so that dough, that side will be in contact with the stone, and then turns it again to fill it in. So he has, let's say, one dry side and one wet side. And this is another margarita. They always finalize how thick it is on top of the spatula. It's a Napolitan tradition to always be two people doing the pizza. One is doing the stesura, which is the rolling out the dough, and the other is baking the oven. So the one that rolls out the dough leaves it there, but the one, the fornaio, is the one that shapes it on top of the spatula. Non è arrivato il basilico fresco ancora? Sì.
Può vedere sempre la maturazione all'interno dell'impasto.
That you always see how it has raised inside of the dough, inside of the cornicione, is how you taste it. Prego, prego.
People that are just watching this one, somebody told me. This is the, what are they called?
Okay, and this is what we were talking before, that of the cadenza, is the cadenza, and also that it needs to be so moist that it drips a little bit of the filling. Incredibile, buonissima veramente. You can see that it needs to be made by hand. In fact, it's one of the rules of the Association of Real Napolitan Pizza, that it needs to be done by hand, and this is the movement, because if you do it with a rolling pin, it becomes tough and rubbery. So always by hand. And you see, I mean, how he does it, it's like second nature, how he forms the cornicione immediately. So it's a little bit of garlic, that they only put the anchovies at half time during the cooking period. Otherwise they burn and they become too bitter. And this is the pizza marinara that we're making, which is with garlic, oregano, also a little bit of basilicum, and they're gonna put the anchovies in the middle. It's only missing the olives. Olive di Gaeta, either with a stone or without a stone, but it needs to be from Gaeta, black olives from Gaeta. And then there is the confusion about the different type of cheeses we use on top of the pizza. So what we normally use is called fior di latte. In Naples, they don't even call it a cheese. They call it simply fior di latte. And it's the same basic ingredient of the mozzarella, but it's strained so that all the moisture goes out and it doesn't make the dough too wet. That is the basic cheese for the pizza. Then, of course, you can add mozzarella di bufala or burrata, which is really not a Campanian product from Puglia, but that's an addition to the fior di latte. He's telling me that, making the signs, that you need to feel the smell that is coming in now, so fragrant. We made the pizza marinara with the anchovies on top. The only thing missing is the black olives from Gaeta on top. This last one is a surprise, and it's something I absolutely adore. It's the pizza fritta, and this you can buy in the streets of Naples. Andiamo? Andiamo. And actually, Sophia Loren gave an interview once, and she said that the thing that he loves the most and he misses the most of Naples when he was filming was the pizza fritta, and it's his favorite food ever. It's absolutely the same dough, and you see he made the shape, but without the cornicione. It's completely flat. These are the two pizzas that they were selling in the post-war period. One was called the pizza portafolio, and it was without flour, without lievito, without yeast, only water and flour, that you can see in the film L'Oro di Napoli, The Gold of Naples of Sophia Loren. And the name of this pizza is Montanara. That comes from the Arriva delle Monti. They use whatever they have, but the real pizza, they use Parmigiano, and they call it Cosacca. This is a real cucina povera. This is pork.
Piatti poveri ma molto ricchi.
Si pagava a 7 giorni.
You would take it and you pay it 7 days after. They will sell it on credit. You can see the quality of the dough, so how the bubbles, it's all uniform, and there's no oil, not a drop of oil inside. Even though it's deep fried, it's completely dry.
Heb je nog meer trek? Er staan op Foodtube meer dan 1000 video's voor je klaar. Abonneer je op ons YouTube kanaal of schrijf je in voor onze nieuwsbrief.